Hello everybody, this is Pete from PA Labs, and I am doing the arcade book, chapter 12 today. And not a lot of stuff is added in chapter 12. It's our big introduction to sprites and writing images to the screen. We're going to get much more into this in the next two chapters. But there's quite a bit here still, so we'll make the best of it. Use PNG image decoder and use PNG image encoder. If you want to read PNG images, you must put this in your program prior to the actual read of the PNG image. If you are going to write out PNG images, then you need the encoder for converting it to a PNG to write it out. And with that said, let's come over here and say image plugins. Here we go. Alright, so this is the beginning of the image plugins. If you're going to play with GIF files, guess what? There's a GIF. If you're going to mess with excuse me, JPEGs, the 200 version versus the current version, then we got those too. If you're going to do PNGs, well, we just defined those. If you want to use TGA, we got that. And if you want to use TIFF, you got this. The system also allows for you to create these sorts of things. I've never created one. I personally always use PNGs. I use paint.net as a rule. And PNGs, I know the current version of JPEG allows you to have null spaces or the alpha in there. I just have always used PNG. I've battled the learning curve of paint.net, got it down pat, so that's just much easier for me to use. It allows you to have areas of your image that are invisible, and so whatever's below them shines through your image. I don't know that we're going to get into any of that in this game, but we might. I mean, yeah, I guess we will when we get to our characters walking around. So he has this libraries folder with a generic PB in it, and I want to show you what I've done to chapter 12. He has this down here as like a part of the whole system library that he brings into a bunch of his. I went ahead and moved it up here into our specific library. So wherever it's needed, I bring it there. All right. So when I zip this up, you'll have everything encompassed, ready to go. If there's images, you'll have an image folder, and you'll have the images that are used. I was playing around and created this one, but I don't know that I use it. I don't think I do. Okay, so that's the outline of where things are. This is kind of goes back to the video I did on organization of your program and putting things where they need to go. I so strongly object to this, where you have a code sheet and you have images all in the same folder. That is many shades of wrong in my idea. So actually I haven't done 19. I've done 17. I have not done 16 other than to put the music and the sounds into their folders and stuff. Okay, moving along with chapter 12. So, don't believe the page titles. That's all copied in code to fix this. So, we're going to load our sprite. Once we have this windowed screen, we have the ability to play with sprites. Now, I put all images, and that's just an image, but when I load an image into a sprite, then it becomes a sprite. And I want to show you sprites over here. Sprites are very different than images. First off, sprites are down here in 2D games and multimedia. But there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with sprites. There's an awful lot here. And when you load a sprite, you have a choice of having the optional value of this be alpha blend, which would mean anything he goes on he kind of blends in with, or it can be pixel collision. So later on in one of the next chapters we're going to get to, we're going to have sprites colliding and then doing stuff on that collision, counting collisions and stuff like that. If you don't have this variable set, then you don't get collisions. It's as simple as that. Okay, so this particular code just loads this test PNG, which is a horrible name, and then he turns and displays the sprite. Notice, start drawing has nothing to do with display sprite. You now have a graphics screen. Displaying sprites is what it does. All right. Now, he's done one other thing that irritates me, and this should be our, let's see. We'll call this our sprite ID, and let's come up here and give him a value equals 4. All right, now, because I've supplied that, you don't really have to worry about this. And the reason you don't have to worry about it not loading is because if there's an error here, let's take that off. Watch what happens. If it doesn't load, boom, your code doesn't work. You have this big glaring error that says, I can't find this image. Okay, oops, all right, I got to turn it off first. All right, so we're going to say images, and then our reference here is wrong because this has to be sprite ID. Now, doesn't that make much more sense? You had a 0 and then a location, and now we're saying display sprite ID. Wonder what sprite ID. Scroll back up. Here's sprite ID. It's this image. Doesn't that make sense? So, I like naming things. That's a real pet peeve of mine. All right, so let's take a look, see at what this does. Isn't that a cool screen? There's our splash screen for the game. Pretty cool looking, isn't it? Now, neat to say, let's go look really at the image. Let's see, this is chapter 12, and we brought up test. So if I load this over here in Paint, look how big that image is. So this image is getting sized and put on the screen for us. Isn't that pretty cool? And it appears to be kind of happening magically, which I can't quite figure out. Draw sprite, and then he has, this is the location he's going to draw it. Unless, hold on, let's see. That's what's doing it. Because we're doing all this cool graphics window stuff, he's actually sizing that to be in accordance with the rendering of that graphics windows, that sub window inside our window. Excuse me. So that's our first one. Kind of cool. And let's see, our second one. This one is special. So we use the PNG image decoder again. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to rotate this picture. And the picture we're talking about is the MIGZ. And in this one, he's actually declaring this function. I think it's at the bottom of the screen. Yeah. So this is really kind of strange. What he's doing, and let me show you first. So he writes this image to the screen here, and then he loads it from there and builds the graphic that gets painted here. And then he saves it back in its original shape back here. So every time he comes into that loop, he loads the image from there rather than, and if you notice, see how he's just slowly spinning there? That's kind of cool, I have to admit that. But it's an unusual way of doing stuff. And I guess, it works. That's what he wanted to show off. So he's getting the width of his sprite and the height of his sprite, and you have to expand those when you rotate. When you rotate an image, the corners will go outside your original image size. So when you rotate, you have to build a bigger than, and then when it gets to the right thing, then you trim it back down. So he calculates the row, he builds this array, and then he sets the array to the rotation. So he rotates the sprite. The image to use is passed in. This is the image being passed in. Let's see. Sprite quality. This is one of those. Let's see. It should be over here. Sprite width, output, quality. There you go. So you have two different ways of identifying sprite quality. I don't know anything about sprite qualities, but I mean, it looks nice. He sets a transparent color. So what he's done, and this is required if you do this, so this is what he's trying to display. This little guy here. And that's going to be our character. And so what he's saying is this purple color is transparent. Now, what could he have done? He could have just come in here and deleted it out, and then he wouldn't even need that. So he's got that as purple, and this as purple, and this as purple. So if I save this image like this, I don't need this guy here, okay? But it's good to know that you can, if you get your graphic from old games and stuff like that, there's a lot of old graphics in games, and you can reuse them in your games because most of those companies don't exist anymore on PCs. So, anyhow, this is the alpha piece of this. So, yeah, well, he's just converting purple to null, and null being invisible. So then he comes down, he rotates his image, then we display the transparent sprite. This is displaying it to that top right corner. Let's see, he finishes up with this, and he's modified the passed in image. So that's what goes back to the code up here. When he says rotate the image, we're passing him the sprite ID of what we loaded and the rotation. And then he comes down here and he's doing that great big grid of 11 by 15 of all the different sprites, just spinning them real fast back and forth, back and forth, in the circle. So that is how this works. And this is cute. It's nice. You can, show it off to your friends. I don't know that you'll use it beyond that. Okay, but I mean, it's playing with sprites. That's the important thing. You're getting used to seeing PNG image decoder. You're getting used to seeing loading things in and attaching IDs. There's two ways to do it. You can hard code your ID, or you can ask Pure Basic to give you a number, and then you can just save that number and go. Again, he's using that little character for the game, and he's loading it into a variable, and he is turning the purple to null. And then, let's see, he's got a couple lines. That's right. This is drawing on a sprite. So what he's going to do is he displays the transparent sprite, and then he draws an X on top of it. Okay? So, yeah, that's what he did here, which is interesting. I mean, you can write on top of sprites. That's cool. Again, I don't know that I've ever used such a command, but that is irrelevant. The goal of doing this is we're going to walk through all of his code, and we're going to convert it to what works so you can see it and see how it's done. That is the important thing at this point. So now you've gotten two examples of loading sprites off the database or off the folders. You know how to turn any color of your sprite into a transparent color. What I would recommend to do is to go out and load some images in and turn various colors of the image different colors, or turn it to invisible and just let it roll. Play around with this. That's the big focus of this, all right, is to play around. So that concludes Chapter 12. It is pretty brief. Most of these on this latter half of the book are pretty brief. There's a couple of bigger ones, but I mean, it's still nowhere near Chapter 7. None of these are, until we get to actually building the game, which he just builds the game and says, here's the game. I'm going to break that up into several videos, and we're going to build it all nice and slow together. So, I want to thank you all for watching.